London, Royal Guard at Buckingham Palace. Things to do in London, changing of the guard. The visitor, a young traveler named Emma, stepped off the Underground at St. James's Park station, her heart beating with a mix of excitement and curiosity. She had always dreamed of coming to London, and now, finally, she was here. Every corner seemed to hum with life. Buses painted in bright red roared past. Black cabs weaved gracefully through traffic, and the streets were dotted with small shops, cafes, and people moving in a steady, purposeful rhythm. Emma adjusted the strap of her backpack, feeling a thrill of anticipation. Today, she was going to witness something she had seen countless times in photographs and videos, but had never experienced in real life: the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. She had read about the ceremony in guidebooks, watched documentaries, and even memorized some of the history behind it. But no amount of reading or watching could prepare her for the feeling of actually standing there, in the midst of the crowd, waiting for history to come alive before her eyes. She walked along the cobbled streets leading to the palace, noticing the contrast between the modern city and the historic buildings that lined the way. On one side, glass-fronted shops reflected the sunlight, while on the other, old brick facades whispered stories from hundreds of years ago. The air smelled faintly of freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery, mingling with the scent of rain that had fallen the night before. Emma breathed deeply, savoring the moment. Every step brought her closer to the heart of London's royal heritage. As she approached the gates of Buckingham Palace, Emma's pace slowed. The palace, even from a distance, was imposing. Its white stone facade gleamed in the morning sun, and the wrought iron gates were a dark, elegant contrast against the building's pale exterior. Tourists had already started gathering, cameras at the ready, some whispering to each other in languages Emma didn't recognize. Children perched on their parents' shoulders, trying to get a better view, and the air was filled with a mixture of chatter, laughter, and the occasional click of a camera shutter. Emma found a spot near the side, hoping for a good view without being in the thick of the crowd. She noticed other visitors around her. Some were locals, giving a polite smile and nod, while others were clearly tourists, eyes wide with excitement, taking notes or filming everything with their phones. The atmosphere was one of anticipation, as though everyone knew they were about to witness something special, something that had been repeated for centuries yet remained captivating every single time. Time seemed to stretch as Emma waited. She observed the people around her and found herself imagining the stories each one carried. A woman with a bright red scarf was talking animatedly on her phone, likely describing the experience to someone who had stayed home. A couple held hands tightly, their eyes fixed on the palace as if drawing courage from each other to be part of this grand moment. A small group of schoolchildren, faces painted with tiny Union Jacks, whispered excitedly among themselves, clearly thrilled to be part of a living piece of history. Emma's attention then shifted to the details of the palace gates. They were adorned with intricate designs and the royal crest, golden accents glinting in the sun. She imagined what it must have been like hundreds of years ago, when the same gates were a symbol of power and protection. Guards would have stood at attention, just as they do now, their presence both ceremonial and functional, a reminder of duty and tradition. Emma found herself drawn to the quiet dignity of the place, feeling a deep respect for the history it represented. As she looked around, she noticed the signs that pointed to other attractions nearby. St. James's Park stretched out to one side, its green lawns dotted with birds and benches, offering a peaceful contrast to the bustling streets. The Mall, a wide road leading up to Trafalgar Square, was lined with trees and seemed almost ceremonial in its design, perfectly framing the approach to the palace. Emma realized that this area was designed not just for tourists or daily commuters, but to highlight the grandeur of the monarchy and the importance of tradition in the city. Minutes passed, and the crowd grew denser. Emma could hear snippets of conversation in many languages, each visitor sharing the same sense of wonder and anticipation. She watched as families settled in, photographers adjusted their lenses, and security personnel moved quietly through the crowd, ensuring everything ran smoothly. The air was filled with a gentle hum of expectation, the kind of quiet excitement that builds before something memorable happens. Then, a faint sound reached Emma's ears, almost like distant drums. She tilted her head, trying to pinpoint it, and noticed other people beginning to turn their heads toward the same direction. The sound grew clearer, a rhythmic march that seemed to echo through the streets. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She was about to witness the guards in action, their march from Wellington Barracks to the palace gates, a ritual that had fascinated people for generations. The anticipation in the crowd was palpable. People murmured in excitement, cameras raised and ready. Emma felt a strange mix of nervousness and exhilaration. She had imagined this moment so many times, yet now that it was actually happening, it felt surreal. The sound of the drums was now accompanied by a faint glimpse of red in the distance, guards moving in perfect formation, their tall bearskin hats unmistakable. The crowd's energy shifted. There was a shared understanding that something historic, even if ceremonial, was unfolding right in front of them. Emma found herself holding her breath, her eyes fixed on the approaching soldiers. She noticed the precision of their movements, the careful coordination that ensured every step was in perfect sync. Even from a distance, their discipline was evident, and Emma felt a wave of admiration. This was not just a performance for tourists. It was a living tradition, a display of dedication and pride. She could almost feel the weight of history in the air, the centuries of ceremonies that had taken place in this very spot, each one unique yet part of a continuous story. The sun shone brightly now, casting a warm glow over the palace and the gathering crowd. Emma adjusted her camera, eager to capture the moment, yet part of her wanted to simply experience it without a lens between her and the reality. She realized that being here, in person, among so many other visitors, was more powerful than any photograph could ever convey. Every sound, every step of the approaching guards, and every murmur of the crowd contributed to an atmosphere that was alive, vibrant, and unforgettable. As the drums grew louder and the guards came into full view, Emma felt a sense of connection not only to the ceremony but to the city itself. London had a way of blending the old with the new, of honoring tradition while embracing the present. Standing there, watching the palace gates and the crowd around her, Emma understood why so many people returned here time and again. It was not just about sightseeing. It was about being part of something larger than oneself, something that transcended time. The first soldiers reached the palace gates, their movements precise and dignified. Emma's eyes followed every step, every salute, and every shift of their position. She could hear the faint commands being called out, the crisp clack of boots on the pavement, and the occasional rustle of uniforms. Even in this moment of ceremony, there was a sense of life and reality. These were not actors, but trained soldiers performing their duty with pride. Emma felt a mix of awe and respect, understanding that what she was witnessing was both a spectacle and a responsibility. By the time the rest of the guards arrived, Emma was fully absorbed in the scene. She had forgotten about the passage of time, lost in the rhythm, the colors, and the sounds. She noticed a small child in front of her pointing excitedly, her laughter ringing through the air. A nearby tourist whispered to her friend about the history of the palace, sharing stories Emma had never heard before. In these small moments, she realized that the ceremony was more than just a formal event. It was a living, breathing story, made meaningful by everyone present. As the morning continued and the guards positioned themselves, Emma took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm and fulfillment. She had arrived in London with dreams of experiencing its history and culture firsthand, And now, standing at the gates of Buckingham Palace, she understood the magic of the city. It was a place where the past was honored, the present was celebrated, and every visitor could feel like a small part of something timeless. Emma glanced around one last time before the ceremony fully began. The palace stood majestically, the crowd buzzed quietly, and the guards remained perfectly poised. She felt ready for the next chapter of the experience, knowing that what she had seen so far was only the beginning of a story she would remember for the rest of her life. With her camera in hand and her heart full of anticipation, Emma prepared to witness the iconic changing of the guard, ready to absorb every detail and create memories that would last forever. Emma's eyes sparkled with excitement as she focused on the distant figures that had just begun to appear at the end of the road, leading from Wellington Barracks. The faint sound of drums had grown steadily louder, accompanied by the crisp rhythm of marching boots striking the pavement. The crowd around her began to stir with anticipation, everyone leaning forward slightly, trying to get a better view of the spectacle that was about to unfold. As the royal guards approached, Emma noticed their distinctive uniforms: tall bearskin hats, bright red tunics, dark trousers with a thin stripe along the side, and shiny black boots polished to perfection. Even from a distance, the sheer precision and discipline of their movements were obvious. Each step was measured, each turn synchronized, and the guards seemed almost statuesque in their focus. Emma could hardly believe that this ceremony, repeated hundreds of times over the centuries, could still command such attention and admiration from people from all around the world. The rhythmic drumbeat and the steady click of boots became louder and louder as the guards drew nearer. Emma felt her heart beat faster, a mixture of excitement and awe running through her. She could see the pride in the soldiers' posture, the way their heads remained perfectly upright, their eyes forward, and their hands gripping their rifles with precision. Even their expressionless faces seemed to carry a quiet strength, a sense of duty that Emma found deeply moving. Beside her, a father whispered to his daughter, explaining how the changing of the guard was not just a performance for tourists, but an important tradition in British history. Emma listened intently, absorbing every word. She thought about how this ceremony had been performed for generations, each guard passing down the discipline and honor to the next. The realization made the moment feel even more special. This was history in motion, alive before her very eyes. The guards continued to march, and Emma noticed the coordination required for such a display. They moved in perfect rows, each step in harmony with the next. The drummer leading them maintained a steady beat, guiding the rhythm of the march. Emma found herself imagining the countless hours of training that had gone into perfecting these movements, the dedication and effort it must take to maintain such precision day after day. It wasn't just about looking impressive. It was about representing the pride and history of a nation. As they drew closer to Buckingham Palace, Emma could see the expressions of the crowd around her. Children gasped in delight, tourists snapped pictures and videos, and even locals paused their morning routines to watch. There was a shared sense of respect and admiration that transcended language and nationality. Emma felt connected to everyone around her, as if the ceremony had the power to unite strangers in a single moment of wonder. The first group of guards reached the palace gates, performing the formalities of the exchange. Emma watched as one guard saluted his counterpart, a ritual that seemed simple yet carried immense meaning. Each movement was deliberate, every gesture conveying respect and precision. Emma realized that there was more to this ceremony than met the eye. It was a demonstration of discipline, loyalty, and commitment. She felt inspired by the quiet dignity of the guards, understanding that their role was both symbolic and deeply practical. Emma's attention shifted to the music that accompanied the march. A military band played lively tunes, the brass and percussion instruments adding a sense of grandeur to the event. The music seemed to fill the air, reaching every corner of the palace grounds and blending perfectly with the rhythmic marching of the soldiers. Emma could see the smiles of fellow spectators as they tapped their feet or hummed along to the familiar melodies. The combination of visual precision and musical accompaniment made the ceremony feel almost magical, a seamless blend of tradition, art, and discipline. As the ceremony progressed, Emma observed small details that made the experience even more captivating. She noticed how the guards adjusted their rifles, how their boots clicked sharply against the pavement, and how their eyes, though expressionless, seemed to carry an air of pride. She watched a guard briefly glance at his surroundings, ensuring everything was in order, and felt a wave of admiration for the focus and dedication required to perform this task flawlessly. The crowd's energy was infectious. Emma could hear whispers of admiration, soft gasps of surprise, and the occasional cheer as a particularly impressive maneuver was performed. She smiled at the children in front of her, who were pointing excitedly at the soldiers, their faces lit with joy and wonder. It was clear that the ceremony was not just for adults. It had the power to enchant people of all ages, inspiring curiosity and appreciation for tradition. Emma's thoughts wandered to the history behind the guards themselves. She remembered reading that the soldiers were part of the household division, responsible for protecting the monarch and carrying out ceremonial duties. Each guard had undergone rigorous training, both physically and mentally, to ensure they could perform their role with precision and honor. Knowing this, Emma felt a deeper respect for the individuals she was watching. They were not just performing for tourists, they were living symbols of dedication and service. The guards continued their march, moving with a confidence that seemed effortless yet clearly required immense discipline. Emma could see the synchronization between the different groups, how each soldier's movements aligned perfectly with those around him. She realized that this harmony was a result of countless hours of practice and attention to detail. The ceremony was not just a show, it was a demonstration of human commitment, coordination, and pride. Emma noticed a guide nearby, speaking quietly to a small group of tourists, explaining the significance of the guards' uniforms. She listened intently as he described the meaning behind the bearskin hats, the colors of the tunics, and the symbolism of the rifles. Every detail seemed to enhance her appreciation for the ceremony. She understood that each element had a purpose, contributing to the overall impression of dignity and authority. The more she learned, the more she admired the meticulous care that went into preserving this tradition. The sun continued to rise, casting a warm light over the palace grounds. Emma could see the shadows of the guards stretching across the pavement, creating striking patterns that added to the visual splendor of the event. She adjusted her camera, capturing moments that she knew would become cherished memories. Yet even as she took pictures, she reminded herself to simply watch and absorb the experience, understanding that some moments were best remembered in the mind and heart rather than through a lens. As the ceremony progressed, Emma became aware of the smaller, human moments within the grand display. She noticed a guard subtly adjusting his hat, ensuring it sat perfectly on his head. She saw another guard nodding briefly to a colleague, a silent acknowledgement of teamwork and shared responsibility. These small gestures reminded her that behind the disciplined exterior were real people, each carrying out their duties with pride and care. It added a layer of humanity to the spectacle, making it feel both awe-inspiring and relatable. Emma's attention returned to the marching soldiers as they performed intricate maneuvers in perfect unison. The precision was mesmerizing, and she could see the admiration in the eyes of the crowd around her. People whispered to each other, pointing out details they had never noticed before. Emma felt a sense of connection to everyone present, as if the ceremony had created a shared moment of appreciation for beauty, discipline, and history. The final group of guards approached, signaling the conclusion of the march. Emma felt a pang of bittersweet emotion. She had been captivated from the very beginning, and now this part of the ceremony was coming to an end. Yet she also felt gratitude for having witnessed such a remarkable event, understanding that these moments were rare and precious. She took a deep breath, savoring the sounds, the sights, and the energy of the crowd around her. As the guards took their positions near the palace gates, Emma reflected on what she had seen. The precision, discipline, and dedication of the royal guards had left a lasting impression. She realized that the ceremony was not just about tradition. It was about human effort, pride, and respect for history. Every step, every drumbeat, and every salute carried meaning, and being present allowed her to experience it in a way no photograph or video could ever capture. The crowd began to settle as the march concluded, and Emma took a moment to soak in the atmosphere. She looked around, noticing the smiles, the quiet conversations, and the shared sense of wonder. Everyone had come from different places, yet they were united in their appreciation for the ceremony. Emma felt a deep sense of belonging, as though she had become part of a living story that had been unfolding for generations. With the march complete and the guards in position, Emma felt ready for the next part of the experience. She knew that the most iconic moment, the actual changing of the guard, was about to begin. Her heart raced again with anticipation, and she adjusted her camera one last time, determined to capture the memories while fully immersing herself in the moment. She realized that witnessing this ceremony was more than a tourist activity. It was a chance to connect with history, culture, and the human spirit in a profound and unforgettable way. Emma's excitement reached its peak as the royal guards, having completed their precise march, took their positions near the gates of Buckingham Palace. The crowd seemed to sense that the main event was about to begin. Whispers filled the air, cameras were adjusted, and children craned their necks, trying to see every detail. Emma found herself holding her breath, her eyes fixed on the guards who now stood like statues, yet exuding a quiet sense of life and purpose. The ceremony, known as the changing of the guard, was more than just a display of discipline. It was a symbol of centuries-old tradition and dedication. Emma had read about it before, but nothing could prepare her for experiencing it in real life. She watched as the old guard, who had been standing vigil for hours, prepared to hand over their duty to the new guard. Each movement was deliberate, slow, and precise, conveying a sense of respect for the role and for the history behind it. Emma noticed how the guards moved with an almost mechanical perfection. Every step, every turn, every salute was timed flawlessly. The coordination between the old and new guards was impressive. It was as if they were performing a carefully choreographed dance, with each individual knowing exactly when to move and how to position themselves. The precision was mesmerizing, and Emma could see why so many people traveled from far and wide to witness it. The band began to play, the music filling the air with a rich and lively melody. The sound of brass instruments and drums echoed off the palace walls, adding grandeur and a sense of celebration to the ceremony. Emma noticed how the music perfectly complemented the guards' movements. Each beat seemed to guide their steps, creating harmony between sound and motion. She could feel the rhythm in her chest, and for a moment it was as if she were part of the ceremony itself, caught up in its elegance and order. The old guard approached the new guard with solemn expressions. Emma observed the subtle details, the way their boots clicked on the pavement, the way they held their rifles, and the careful, deliberate gestures of salutes. There was no rush, no unnecessary movement, only a calm precision that spoke volumes about the seriousness of their duty. Emma felt a sense of awe, realizing that this ritual had been performed for generations, unchanged in its dedication and discipline. As the ceremony progressed, Emma noticed the smaller, human details that often went unnoticed. A guard briefly adjusted his uniform, making sure every line was straight and every button polished. Another exchanged a nod with a colleague, a silent acknowledgement of teamwork and shared responsibility. These tiny gestures added a layer of humanity to the otherwise strict ceremony. Emma smiled, appreciating the balance between discipline and personal pride. The crowd watched in quiet fascination. Children whispered excitedly to each other, pointing at the guards and the musical instruments. Tourists murmured explanations to friends, describing the history and symbolism behind the ceremony. Emma found herself drawn into these conversations, sharing in the collective curiosity and admiration of the moment. She realized that the ceremony was not just for show, it was a living story, shared by everyone present. Emma's gaze shifted to the palace itself. Buckingham Palace stood majestically, its stone walls gleaming in the sunlight. The gates, adorned with intricate designs and the royal crest, provided a regal backdrop for the ceremony. She imagined how the palace must have looked hundreds of years ago, with guards performing similar duties, maintaining the same traditions that were still alive today. The sense of history made every detail of the ceremony feel more meaningful, as if Emma were witnessing a bridge between the past and the present. The new guard began to take over, stepping forward with measured precision. Each soldier moved in perfect alignment, following commands that were clear yet almost imperceptible to the casual observer. Emma marveled at the discipline required to perform these actions flawlessly. She could imagine the training, the dedication, and the countless hours spent perfecting every movement. It was not just about appearance, it was about embodying a role that carried responsibility, honor, and history. The exchange of duty reached its critical moment. The old guard stepped aside as the new guard assumed their positions. Emma watched closely as rifles were handed over, salutes were exchanged, and positions were adjusted. Every action, though small, carried weight and significance. She felt a sense of reverence, understanding that this ceremony was not merely a tourist attraction but a serious demonstration of loyalty and service. Emma noticed the expressions on the guards' faces, stoic, disciplined, and yet full of focus. There was no sign of distraction or hesitation. Each soldier seemed completely absorbed in the task at hand, aware of the importance of their role. Emma felt a deep respect for these individuals, realizing that behind the impressive uniforms and precise movements were real people committed to maintaining a tradition that had endured for centuries. The band continued to play, adding an air of celebration to the solemnity of the ceremony. Emma could see the pride in the faces of the musicians as they performed, knowing that their music was an essential part of the event. The combination of sound and movement created a powerful experience, one that captivated everyone in the crowd. Emma felt lucky to be standing there, absorbing every detail, every sound, and every movement. Children in the crowd clapped quietly, imitating the movements of the guards in playful mimicry. Emma smiled at their innocence and enthusiasm. She realized that the ceremony had the power to inspire, to educate, and to create lasting memories for people of all ages. It was a reminder that traditions, when preserved with care and pride, could continue to touch hearts and minds long after their inception. Emma's thoughts wandered to the history of the royal guards. She remembered reading that they were part of the household division, responsible for protecting the monarch and performing ceremonial duties. Each guard underwent rigorous training, both physically and mentally, to ensure they could perform their roles with precision and discipline. Emma felt a sense of admiration for their dedication, understanding that their work was both a privilege and a responsibility. The ceremony moved toward its conclusion, with the new guard firmly in place and the old guard preparing to depart. Emma could see the careful coordination required to make this transition smooth and dignified. Each step, each salute, and each adjustment of the uniform was executed with meticulous attention. It was a testament to the value of tradition, discipline, and respect for history. Emma felt inspired, realizing that these principles were not only important for the ceremony, but could also serve as a lesson in life itself. As the old guard marched away, Emma followed their movements with her eyes, appreciating the final moments of their service. The precision and dedication of the guards left a lasting impression, and she felt grateful for having witnessed it. The crowd's energy shifted from anticipation to admiration, as people quietly reflected on the experience they had just shared. Emma felt connected to everyone around her, united by the simple yet profound act of observing a centuries-old tradition. Emma took a moment to capture the scene with her camera, but she also made a conscious effort to memorize the details in her mind. She wanted to remember the sound of the drums, the rhythm of the boots, the gleam of the polished rifles, and the disciplined movements of the guards. Every element combined to create an unforgettable experience, one that she knew would stay with her for a lifetime. The sun was now high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the palace grounds. Emma felt a sense of calm and fulfillment, as though she had not only witnessed history but had become part of it in her own small way. She watched the crowd slowly begin to disperse, with families, tourists, and locals carrying away memories of a ceremony that had once again lived up to its reputation. As Emma stepped back from the gates, she reflected on what she had just seen. The changing of the guard was more than a display of pageantry. It was a living tradition, a demonstration of discipline, pride, and respect. It was a moment where history, culture, and human effort came together, creating a sense of connection between the past and the present. Emma felt a renewed appreciation for London and its rich heritage, understanding that the city's charm lay not only in its buildings and streets, but in the stories and traditions that continued to thrive within them. Before moving on to explore the rest of London, Emma took a last look at Buckingham Palace. The guards stood tall and proud, the band played their final notes, and the crowd slowly faded into the background. She smiled, knowing that she had witnessed something truly special, an experience that went beyond sightseeing, an experience that captured the essence of British tradition and history. With her heart full of admiration and her mind buzzing with memories, Emma prepared to continue her journey, carrying the lessons and inspiration of the changing of the guard with her wherever she went. After witnessing the changing of the guard, Emma took a few steps back from the bustling crowd, letting her senses fully absorb what she had just experienced. The rhythmic sounds of drums, the crisp marching boots, and the ceremonial music still echoed in her mind, leaving her feeling both exhilarated and reflective. She realized that this wasn't just a moment of spectacle. It was a chance to connect with history, culture, and the human stories behind centuries-old traditions. She wandered toward a quieter area near the palace gates, where a few benches overlooked the manicured gardens of St. James's Park. The green lawn stretched out peacefully, dotted with trees and birds, providing a serene contrast to the lively crowd she had just left. Emma took a deep breath, appreciating the calm after the excitement, and allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought about the royal guards, how disciplined, focused, and proud they had been. Each step, each salute, each measured movement had been executed with care and respect. She wondered what it must feel like to carry such responsibility, knowing that every action, however small, represented centuries of tradition. As she sat on a bench, Emma noticed a small group of tourists nearby. They were listening intently to a local guide, who spoke with a soft, steady voice, explaining the significance of the Royal Guard and Buckingham Palace. Emma moved closer, eager to hear more. The guide explained that the household division, to which the guards belonged, had a dual role: to protect the monarch and to serve in ceremonial functions. He emphasized that every guard underwent rigorous training, not just in physical fitness, but also in discipline, ceremonial protocol, and historical knowledge. Emma felt a deeper appreciation for the guards now, realizing that their impressive display was only the visible part of years of dedication and service. The guide continued, describing the history of Buckingham Palace itself. Originally a large townhouse built in the early 18th century, the palace had gradually transformed into the royal residence known today. Emma pictured the grand halls, the ornate rooms, and the rich history held within the walls. She imagined kings and queens walking these corridors, planning state events, and observing the world outside from the palace windows. It fascinated her how the palace had remained a symbol of tradition and continuity, connecting the past with the present in a way that was tangible for everyone who visited. Emma's thoughts returned to the ceremony she had just witnessed. She reflected on the significance of ritual and tradition in society. In a world that often seemed fast-paced and ever-changing, the changing of the guard stood as a reminder of consistency and dedication. The ceremony wasn't merely for tourists. It was a living symbol of respect for history and a demonstration of human effort. Emma felt inspired, thinking about how people in their own lives could carry similar principles, discipline, respect, and pride in their work. A small child ran past Emma, laughing, her painted Union Jack flag waving in the air. Emma smiled, realizing that this ceremony had the power to inspire people of all ages. She thought about how she had felt as a child, reading stories about kings, queens, and soldiers. Now, as an adult, standing in the same place, witnessing history firsthand, the experience was even more profound. It reminded her that some traditions, when preserved with care, could continue to touch hearts and minds, passing lessons from one generation to the next. Emma's attention shifted to the people around her. Tourists and locals alike were quietly sharing their impressions. She overheard a couple discussing how impressive it was that the guards could maintain such discipline for hours at a time. Nearby, a group of students chatted about the historical significance of the uniforms, the bearskin hats, and the ceremonial rifles. Emma felt a sense of connection with these strangers, realizing that in that moment, everyone was united by curiosity, respect, and admiration for the same living tradition. She decided to take a leisurely walk along the paths of St. James's Park, letting her thoughts wander. The gentle sound of water from the park's lake, the rustle of leaves in the trees, and the occasional chirp of birds created a peaceful soundtrack to her reflections. She thought about how different London must have looked hundreds of years ago, yet how the essence of tradition had endured. The guards, ceremony, the palace, and even the carefully maintained park were all reminders of a city that honored its past while embracing the present. Emma noticed a small plaque near a bench that told the story of the park and its connection to the monarchy. She read about how St. James's Park had been created in the 16th century as a royal hunting ground and gradually transformed into a public space. It struck her how history could be layered in such simple ways. What was once a private space for royalty was now a place for everyone to enjoy. She smiled, realizing that her own experience of the changing of the guard was part of that living history, a personal connection to centuries of stories and traditions. Sitting by the edge of the park, Emma took out her notebook and began to write. She described the sights, the sounds, and the emotions she had felt during the ceremony. She wrote about the pride and discipline of the guards, the grandeur of the palace, and the sense of shared wonder in the crowd. Writing helped her process the experience, turning fleeting moments into lasting memories. She realized that by putting her thoughts on paper, she was participating in a small way in the act of preserving history, capturing it from her own perspective. Emma's reflections turned to the idea of service and duty. Watching the guards perform their roles with such dedication had made her think about the ways people contribute to society in everyday life. Whether through small acts of kindness, dedication to work, or commitment to a craft. She understood that discipline and pride in one's actions could leave a lasting impact. The ceremony had shown her that even highly structured and formal duties carried human significance. They were a reflection of values that transcended time. She noticed a young man sketching the palace in his notebook. His lines captured the elegance of the architecture, the intricate gates, and even the distant figures of the guards. Emma realized that people interpreted the same experience in different ways, each adding their own perspective to the living story of Buckingham Palace. Some captured it in photos, some in writing, and some in sketches. Each approach preserved a piece of the moment, a way of connecting with history and sharing it with others. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Emma took a slow walk back toward the palace gates, her eyes scanning every detail. She observed the guards still standing at attention, even after the ceremony had ended, their discipline unwavering. She felt a sense of admiration and respect for their commitment, understanding that their role required more than physical endurance. It required focus, patience, and pride. The guards were living symbols of dedication, representing the values and history of the nation. Emma paused to watch a brief interaction between a guard and a passerby. The guard, though stoic, responded politely to a question from a curious tourist, offering a short, formal explanation. It was a reminder that even within strict discipline, there was room for humanity and connection. Emma thought about how this balance of formality and approachability was part of what made the ceremony so enduring and inspiring. As she walked away, Emma reflected on her own feelings during the experience. She realized that witnessing the changing of the guard had been more than just a tourist activity. It had been a lesson in respect, history, and human effort. She felt a sense of gratitude for having the opportunity to see such a powerful tradition firsthand. It was a reminder that the world was full of stories waiting to be discovered, and that each moment of observation could deepen understanding and appreciation. Emma's thoughts turned to the larger significance of tradition in society. Watching the guards and the ceremony had shown her that customs and rituals were more than rules. They were ways to honor the past, connect with others, and maintain a sense of continuity in an ever-changing world. She realized that traditions could inspire, educate, and create a sense of belonging, making them valuable not only for historical reasons, but also for personal growth and reflection. By the time Emma left the palace grounds, she felt a profound sense of connection, not only to London and its history, but also to the countless people who had come before her to witness the same ceremony. She understood that she had become part of a living story, one that combined human effort, discipline, and the beauty of tradition. Every sight, sound, and interaction had contributed to an unforgettable experience, one that would remain with her for years to come. With a final glance at the palace gates, Emma turned toward the streets of London, ready to continue her exploration. She felt inspired, carrying with her the lessons and reflections from the changing of the guard. The experience had reminded her that history is not only found in books or museums, but also in the people, rituals, and stories that continue to shape the present. Emma walked away with a heart full of admiration, curiosity, and a renewed sense of connection to the world around her. After leaving the peaceful gardens of St. James's Park, Emma walked slowly back toward the bustling streets of London, still reflecting on the changing of the guard. The experience had been more than she had imagined. It was not just a spectacle, but a deep connection to history, tradition, and human dedication. Every step she took felt lighter, as if she were carrying the pride and precision of the royal guards with her. The city around her seemed alive in a new way, each sound, each movement, each glance of passers-by rich with meaning. The streets were busy with the usual morning activity. Red double-decker buses rumbled past, and black cabs glided through the traffic with ease. Shop windows displayed colorful goods, from fresh flowers to handcrafted souvenirs, while cafes spilled the scent of baked bread and strong coffee onto the sidewalk. Emma took it all in with a sense of wonder, feeling that she was walking through a living postcard, a city that blended centuries of history with the rhythm of modern life. As she strolled, Emma thought about the people she had observed during the ceremony. Families, tourists, and locals had all shared the same space, each experiencing the changing of the guard in their own way. Some had captured it on camera, others had written notes or sketches, and a few had simply stood silently, absorbing every detail. Emma realized that these shared moments created a sense of connection, a silent bond between strangers who were all witnesses to something extraordinary. It reminded her that travel was not just about seeing sights, but about feeling and experiencing the life and stories of a place. Emma's thoughts then turned to the royal guards themselves. She imagined their day, waking early, donning the iconic red tunics and bearskin hats, and performing their duties with unwavering focus. She thought about the training they must undergo, the discipline required to remain still for long periods, and the pride they carried in representing the monarchy. There was a sense of respect in every movement, every salute, and every step they took, a dedication that transcended mere duty and became a symbol of continuity and tradition. She paused for a moment near a small street corner, watching a group of tourists as they tried to recount what they had just witnessed. Some were laughing at minor mishaps, others were debating the history behind the ceremony, and a few were simply staring in awe at the palace gates. Emma smiled, feeling a quiet joy in observing their reactions. It made her realize that traditions like the changing of the guard were not only about discipline and history, but also about creating memories, inspiring curiosity, and fostering a sense of wonder. Continuing her walk, Emma came across a small souvenir shop. She peeked inside, admiring the miniature models of Buckingham Palace, keychains with guards, and books about London's history. Each item seemed to tell a story, offering a way for visitors to carry a piece of the experience home. Emma picked up a small notebook with an illustration of the royal guards on the cover and held it in her hands. She thought about how she could use it to continue writing her reflections, capturing not only what she had seen, but also what she had felt. It seemed fitting, a way to preserve the memories of her visit and connect them with the larger story of London's history and culture. As she left the shop, Emma's attention was drawn to the nearby London Eye in the distance. Its giant wheel turned slowly against the bright blue sky, offering a modern counterpoint to the historic palace she had just left behind. Emma thought about how London seamlessly combined the old with the new. On one side were centuries-old buildings, royal ceremonies, and historic traditions. On the other were modern attractions, bustling streets, and the energy of a city that never seemed to sleep. She realized that this blend was part of what made London so fascinating, a place where history and progress coexisted beautifully. Emma decided to take a detour toward the Mall, the wide ceremonial road leading from Buckingham Palace toward Trafalgar Square. Walking along it, she imagined royal processions passing down the same path, the same trees lining the road for decades, witnessing the ebb and flow of London life. The road felt alive with history, each step she took echoing with stories of kings, queens, and countless citizens who had walked there before. The experience gave her a sense of continuity, a feeling that she was part of a much larger story, one that extended far beyond her own life. Along the Mall, Emma noticed several statues and memorials, each commemorating historical figures or important events. She paused at a statue of a military hero, reading the inscription and reflecting on the courage and dedication that the figure represented. It struck her how similar these qualities were to what she had witnessed in the royal guards. Both embodied discipline, loyalty, and a sense of responsibility. Emma felt inspired, understanding that history was not only about the past, but also about the values and principles that continued to shape society in the present. She continued toward Trafalgar Square, passing by fountains, pigeons, and groups of tourists taking photos. The square was alive with activity, yet there was a sense of grandeur that made it feel almost ceremonial, echoing the formal dignity of Buckingham Palace. Emma found a spot near one of the fountains and sat down for a moment, letting the sounds of the city wash over her. She reflected on how the day had unfolded, the anticipation, the ceremony, the music, and the emotions she had felt, and realized how transformative travel could be. Witnessing history firsthand allowed her to experience it in a way that books or videos could never provide. Emma opened her notebook and began to write again, capturing the final impressions of her visit to Buckingham Palace and the changing of the guard. She described the majesty of the palace, the pride and discipline of the guards, the energy of the crowd, and the serene beauty of the surrounding gardens. She wrote about the lessons she had learned, about dedication, tradition, respect, and the importance of connecting with history. Each word helped her solidify the memories, making the experience tangible and lasting. As the afternoon sun began to cast longer shadows, Emma stood and stretched, feeling a gentle tiredness from the morning's excitement. She decided to walk toward Westminster, another iconic part of London she had longed to see. The streets were filled with a mix of locals and tourists, street performers and small markets. Every corner offered a glimpse into London's rich tapestry, from historic landmarks to the everyday lives of its residents. Emma felt fortunate to be exploring a city that balanced the extraordinary and the ordinary so seamlessly. Along the way, she passed by small cafes and bakeries, their aromas tempting her to pause. She decided to stop for a cup of tea, sitting by a window and watching the world go by. Sipping the warm tea, she reflected on the day's experiences. The changing of the guard had been the highlight, but she realized that every moment, from the bustling streets to the quiet parks, contributed to a deeper understanding of London. She felt a sense of gratitude for being able to witness both the grandeur and the simple beauty of the city. Emma's thoughts wandered to the lessons she could carry beyond London. She reflected on the importance of patience, dedication, and respect for tradition. She thought about how small acts of discipline and pride, whether in work, study, or personal growth, could leave a lasting impact. The Royal Guards had shown her that even highly structured routines could inspire and teach, and she felt motivated to apply these lessons in her own life. Finishing her tea, Emma stood and continued her journey toward Westminster. She passed the River Thames, watching boats glide across the water, and admired the mix of historic bridges and modern architecture. The city felt alive and timeless at the same time, a living museum where every street and building told a story. Emma realized that her day had been a journey not just through London, but through history itself, connecting her with the past while immersing her in the present. As evening approached, Emma paused to look back toward Buckingham Palace, its silhouette bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. She felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The day had been everything she had hoped for, filled with wonder, learning, reflection, and connection. She had witnessed a living tradition, felt the pulse of the city, and carried away memories that would last a lifetime. With a final deep breath, Emma continued her walk, ready to explore more of London, yet carrying the lessons and inspiration from Buckingham Palace within her. She knew that the changing of the guard was more than a ceremony. It was a symbol of discipline, dedication, and continuity. It had left her inspired, reflective, and grateful, a perfect reminder that the most memorable experiences are often those that combine beauty, history, and human connection.